I don't know why the glitter lip gloss I put on top made my lips look like this in this lighting. We're not talking about it. We are here to talk about books that I read in April that didn't go in videos. Here's the issue. I will talk about stats in a hot minute. I do have them up on my old phone, so you know, good times. I read a total of 12 books and DNF 3, right? So that's 15 books. The first one I read that wasn't for a video was the 21st. That was the first one I started. I should mention that. I started one on the 21st. I did just barely manage to get 8 books for this, which is the number I try to reach for thumbnail purposes. Like, technically I could do 6 or 7 and then 2 of the graphics be stat stuff. That's fine. But I try really hard to do 8, and let me tell you, 4 of these were as of, like, in the past 2 days. 3 of them I did yesterday. I read so much yesterday. I had a great time. I should mention this. I had a great time. Like, I say all this. I didn't read much, and it was me working my darnest to get it so there was enough books to actually film this. Because up until about 4 days ago, there were 3 books to talk about. And, like, that's not enough to do a whole entire video on. I was like, do I just do a read with me instead and then do a short? I don't know. What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. So I pushed myself to read enough to do this, right? That happened. But I will say this, one, because I blissfully DNF'd multiple books. And then also, because a lot of the reading I did was me spending time with books that I was enjoying. Right? Like, it took me, like, about a week to read one of my favorite books this month that I don't get to talk about on this. Because it was for a video. But it was a 5-star, and I took, like, a week reading it. I took my time. I was having a great time. Right? And so, because of that, the best part about the stats is I can tell you, my average rating for the month is a solid 4. It's perfectly a 4. And I love that for myself, honestly. That is great for me personally. Because I usually am in, like, 3.6, and I always wanted to be above a 4. So the fact that I finally did it this month. 12 books, there were 3 DNFs, all those also for videos, so not in this. There was 3,293 pages, 83.5 hours of audiobook. Average per day was just under 110 pages, which the ratio was off, because if you look at my Storycraft calendar graphics, a lot of the days I was just, like, reading 8 pages before bed. Like, I was slumping a little hard because real life stuff. So, yeah, average page count, also that's another thing. I think there was only 1 book that was under 200 pages. So the average page count was 329 pages. Most read genre was fantasy. Was it? Was it really? Oh my god, it actually was with 3. I guess one of them is fantasy that I'm going to talk about in this. But I label it as fantasy even though it's also a classic. So, like, if you ignore that and make it a classic instead, then it's 2 fantasy and 2 historical. Anyways, 3 were authors of color, 7 from authors I read before, 2 5-stars, sadly I don't get to talk about. One of them today, 1 4.5, 6 4-stars. Yeah, most things I read were 4 stars today. That was, or this month, which was also great. The fact that I was generally reading great books. There's only 1 book I didn't like this month, and that is the first one we're going to talk about in a hot minute. A 3.5 and 2 3-stars. Actually, I guess there were 2 I didn't like, but one of them I disliked more than the other. One was a new release. It will be obvious. The rest were backlists. Mostly mixed media. Also, mostly read from Kindle Unlimited, which is great. Use my membership well. Anyways, that's the stats. Good stuff. Now I get to actually talk about books. The first one, okay, I have to explain this. The second one we will talk about is the other 5-star and my favorite of the month. the book that I read right before the one that I'm about to tell you about, that I didn't like, I think this is why I don't like it, comparison to the other 3-star, this is what I like the least. Like, it probably should be a 2.5 or a 2, in all honesty. Part of the reason why is because it was sandwiched between the 2 5-stars that I loved so much, and I fought with myself with which one to label as my favorite of the month, right? And that's Lovely Bad Things, by Trisha Wolf, I think. I read another series by her, which is Born Madly and Born Darkly, right? I think it's like the Madly Darkly duology, something like that. This is, here's the thing, I like her dark romances because, at least in the first book of the series, generally what happens is, while the male main character is a violent guy, he is incarcerated, or behind bars, and it has something to do with the female main character, and so she has more power in the dynamic. The other series by her I read, in which I did like the first one more than the rest of the series, which is bad news for this series, honestly. In that one, she was his psychologist, right? And he was a serial killer, I believe. In this one, she's like essentially the whole entire Criminal Minds team by herself. That's essentially what her job is, right? And she doesn't technically work for the FBI, she's technically like freelance and whatnot, right? And he is a guy who she, suspected of killing this other man in a copycat killing, right? And the opening chapter is her on the stand, putting him behind bars, and they aren't able to convict him of the actual crime, but she does get him, put into an asylum. And then, in this random small town where there was a bunch of missing people, multiple years ago, suddenly there are the body parts, like the eyes, and then the ears, and I think the tongues, at another location in the woods of this town, of these people. So, that is, a fun time. That is, we love that. That is what we love. And it seems to have a connection to she thinks that Loverboy is the original killer of the copycat killings as well, right? That he did. But, like, there's some kind of connection with philosophy, and he was a philosophy professor, so she goes to him for help, right? And they work together to catch the true bad guy while also finding their attraction. Hear me out. Most of this book, listen, it's like they really tried to make her, Jodie Foster, I can't remember the character's name, in Silence of the Lambs. There are references to Silence of the Lambs in the book, I should mention this. There's multiple references, to, him being Hannibal and her being Jodie Foster, right? Like, that's a thing in the book. And so it's trying to be that dynamic, but also her internal monologue is very much her actually, not that type of character. So there's some contradiction there that I don't like. And on top of that, their whole entire banter dynamic, I was trying to say banter dynamic at the same time, everything they say is just a bunch of philosophy hot topics, sandwiched and squished together in a way that makes zero sense. I just sat there reading like, I don't know what the fuck they're saying. I have to see, I don't know. I don't know what they said. For 90% of this book, they're hitting on each other. They're making out. Their fingers are going places. And the things they're saying is making no sense to me. And then there's also the twist at the end, about who really, did the killing, that she got him put away for doing. And I'm just in there like, holy shit. This makes no sense. This tea is really good. Anyways, so 3 stars. It should definitely be a 2.5. But I'm not changing it because I like my solid 4. And then we got, after that, I went straight into, okay, so like, that one was to heal emotionally from the 5-star, the first 5-star. Because it affected me so much. I was like, I need to read something dumb and fun. And then I read this book, and it confused me so much. And I was just like going, huh, every 5 seconds? And so I needed something else to heal emotionally from that experience. So I read my second 5-star of the month, which is my favorite of the month, Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. I gotta read Camp Damascus because right before I read this, I saw that Chuck Tingle is going on a book tour because there's, I think, Something Fabulous is a new book he's coming out. That's I got to explain to somebody that he has trad published books as well, and I was gonna go read them, and then I went, also, by the way, I rated it 5 stars, and they went, what the fuck? Okay, I guess I gotta go into the Tingleverse. I was like, oh, don't worry, there is actually, in the video in which he was promoting, this book tour for this new book, I did learn that the Tingleverse, they are interconnected to the point where Camp Damascus is brought up briefly in Bury Your Gaze. So I do have to read that one, because that one I think is the first one in the universe, in the Tingleverse. And I'm fine with going to read it because this book was great. It follows a guy. You think I remember characters' names? No. He works as a writer for a big Hollywood company, right? He is nominated for an Oscar this year. And one of his big hit shows, right? They call him into the office to be like, hey, we know that you plan to make the 2 female characters that you've been hinting at being in love for the past, like, 2 seasons. We know that in the season finale, you plan to make them a kiss, right? But the algorithm says that, either they have to get boyfriends, or, one of them has to die to make room for new characters. And so he immediately is like, fuck no, right? Because Bury Your Gaze, hence the title. Chapter 1 sets it up so well, right? And in the process of him saying no, there is also this whole aspect where they are making the first, it's described as like AI, but it's definitely not AI, let me tell you. I guess it technically is. Let me tell you, that AI went rogue. Version of a dead actor to play his first movie in like 40 years or something, and that's like another thing that the company's doing, right? And so essentially the company is using the technology they use to do that to make all the villains in all his media come after him and hunt him down to kill him and make him look like he's going fucking crazy, right? And so then, because like queer tragedy is what's popular, not queer happiness. And it's also like hunting down his best friend who's asexual, and that's like a whole aspect where no piece of media has asexuals in it. That's like an important part of the book. He's got a bisexual boyfriend. He's not out in his hometown. Like he's LA out, but not hometown out, because he's from like middle of the US states, you know, one of those. And so they are all like working together as they're being hunted down by his own villains that are also like, as he's being hunted down, we also get to learn the basis for these characters, right? Like the guy who's like essentially death, smoking cigarettes, right? All the time, and how he is based off of his uncle and whatnot. And so that is a whole aspect of the book, in a sense, to make him look crazy, so that they can make it look like he killed himself, and they can right when he's about to win an Oscar, and they can popularize it and blah, 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 and get what they want out of the show and whatnot. Except there's also so much other stuff happening. That's just the very basics of what's happening in this book. There's so much other shit happening in this book. And let me tell you, there was one aspect in the book where it would like go into a script suddenly of what's happening in his life. And it was very different from the rest of the book. And every single time I was like, what the fuck is this? And when it explains it to you, jaw on the floor. It was great. Everything about this book was great. I loved it so much. 5 stars. Anyways, then I finally read Project Hail Mary, thanks to my sister. No, you may be like, but thanks to your sister for Project Hail Mary. Hail Mary. Yes. That's how I had the audiobook. She got it on Audible, just so that I could read it, as well. Because there is a 24-hour vlog from March, where in it she finishes Project Hail Mary. She was like, "It's really good. You should read it." And so she got it from Audible, because she had a discount or whatnot, so that I could read it. And I, like, she did the thing where you get the shareable link, and so that I could read it, and then the time ran out like a month ago. But that's okay, because I forgot that we have shared Amazon's accounts where, like, you can make it a household, right? So that my Kindle Unlimited, she has access to that, as well as my library books, right? And then the funniest thing happened where I did not realize that would also be Audible. I don't know where. Some of these, I was like, I don't remember getting these, but she also doesn't remember getting them. Like, I don't know which one of us got the Midnight Library. Anyways, that's great for me when I do read Buffalo Hunter later on. Because she also got that book, with her discounted credits. So fun times. But because of that, that's why I was able to read Project Hail Mary. Finally picked it up, because the hype of the movie is really crazy right now, to the point where Bestie, who isn't a sci-fi fan or fantasy fan, really, went and saw it in theaters and said, "You should watch it. It's really good." And I went, "Okay." What is it about? It is about, I think his name's Grace, who is a high school science teacher, and there is essentially an alien, that is a small organism that soaks up, energy, especially light energy, and it is dimming the sun, and because of it, the whole entire equilibrium of the whole entire Earth is gonna go into whack real soon. And he is brought in to work closely with the team that is trying to figure out how to stop this. Initially, because he was originally in academia, and whatnot, and research and all that fun stuff, but he left after he published an article about the possibility of life forms that exist without water. And because these organisms have to be so close to the sun, to be soaking up all that energy, it is believed, how can they have water, right? Like, that would evaporate, like, instantaneously, because of the temperature. So, they bring him in to be one of the first people. Also, he's, like, not really important in the grand scheme of scientists. So if he dies, by being one of the first humans to interact with them, then that's fine. That's fine, right? So he is brought in, and it is quickly learned, because of how the organism's outer shell, kind of, is made, that there is water. So, yeah, and then he's just kept along, because he's one of the first people to figure out a lot of stuff about them, like how to replicate them, or make them reproduce, right? Which is really important for thing. And then there is a decision to do, make Project Hail Mary, to go into this specific area in space that is very, very far away, because there is one specific area, one planet, where they cannot see any of this organism. The stupid bird is hitting my window. This is every day of my life, all day long. Anyways, I'm going to ignore it. Oh my god, I just witnessed it. Front face. Oh. Anyways, so this one planet doesn't have any of this astrophage. This whole time I've been trying to figure out remember the name of the organism. So he's trying to find, they're trying to figure out why this one planet doesn't have astrophage when every other planet around it does. And so he, ends up on the ship doing this for some reason. We don't know. He doesn't fully understand why. I did get that spoiler for my sister accidentally, like 2 chapters before I read the chapter, right? Where you learn why he's sent in space, genetically why, right? And I get the why. I'm just still very mad about it. Anyways, And the book starts with him waking up on the ship, because it's such a long distance, right? They could have, like, all the scientists on the ship could have been awake the whole time. But one saves space if they have liquid food instead of just solid food that has to taste good. And they're in a coma the whole time. And so, also, there's, like, studies they found where if you spend, like, 4 years alone with, like, 3 people, you're gonna kill each other type thing. So make sure that doesn't happen. They put them all to sleep. They put them all in a coma, and for some reason, he's the only one who survived the coma. Yeah. And so he's by himself, and he also has amnesia. He doesn't remember his name when he first wakes up. He does start to, so like this whole time, all the stuff from before about, him being a school teacher, him, being part of the team to figure out Project Hail Mary and all this stuff, is him slowly getting his memories back. And then in the current day is him actively, trying to figure out what's going on with this astrophage while also hanging out with Rocky. I'm not explaining what or who Rocky is. I just love Rocky. He belongs in my pocket. I don't care if he's like 300 pounds. He's going in my pocket. I love him. Anyways, the end, 4 stars. I personally liked The Martian more. I did, also that's another thing, I did finally watch the Martian movie, just because of this book. Dude, like the night before I started this book, I watched the movie finally. And so, you know, it also made me really excited to watch the movie of Project Hail Mary. I did personally prefer The Martian just because, the character stuff in that I preferred, personally. Also, the dual timeline stuff was not my favorite. I'm gonna be honest. That being said, I still really liked it. 4 stars. Anyways, next up we get to talk about the one new release. Which is This Story Might Save Your Life. I remember, I don't remember which video, but I remember Bucks and Lala talking about it, reading it, talking about how it is a podcast based around a podcast, and the audiobook has aspects in it because of that, right? I thought she rated it higher than she did. She rated it the same as I, which is 3. I have very mid feelings. I almost had my sister read it, but she picked up a different audiobook, mystery thriller audiobook, because she was looking for one. But that's like a different library card that she has access to, so, right? So she decided to listen to another one, and then after I finished it, I went, yeah, it's a good thing I didn't give you this one, because I didn't like it. It's not good. It is good. I could see why someone likes it, right? I'm gonna do some comps in a minute, and I'm not the biggest fan of either one of these books. And so because of that, it's not a surprise. I'm not the biggest fan of this book. Essentially it follows, Joy and I don't remember his name, who are best friends. She has sleep apnea. Is it sleep apnea? No, something else. Is it narcolepsy? I can't remember the exact term, where she suddenly just falls asleep sometimes, right? She has a lot of trouble with that. They're best friends. They have this close bond. She is happily married to this guy. They have this podcast together, her and her best friend. The husband's sister is like the producer now. The husband is like, does all the behind the scenes stuff, right? Like big money stuff, behind the scenes stuff. Like they're making bank. They're making bank, right? They were able to buy a very large house in LA. That's how much bank they're making, right? And whatnot. And so they're like filming their podcast, blah, blah, blah. She gives him a secret note to come by her house later that night. And she basically tells him that they have to go on pause for personal reasons. And he's very confused. And then she is like, I'm gonna film the pause of the podcast myself. Goodbye, leave my house, right? And then the next day they show up to record. This sister-in-law and him show up to record. And there's broken glass and windows and whatnot. And they take a while to call the police because there's like a whole bunch of stuff where there were the heavy winds, right? And window had broken previously because of the winds and tree branches going through. So they were like, it's probably nothing, right? And then eventually they realize the dog has escaped and is just off on its own. So they call the police, And essentially, it's a whole missing case thing. We're trying to figure out where Joy and her husband are. And the police assume that main character Boy has something to do with it, right? But also at the same time, she left a bunch of clues for him to solve what happened to her. The comps are gonna make so much sense in a hot minute. And also throughout this, like every other chapter, essentially, is her memoir that she is writing. They are writing a memoir together, right? They have a whole book deal, and so is learning about her whole entire relationship, both with him but also her husband, and that whole dynamic. Cough, cough, and then part 2 happens, and there is an obvious twist, and all that jazz. The end. Comps, hear me go. It is, I had the physical book over there because it's in my unhaul section, and whatnot, which is People Like Her, which is like a mommy vlogger on Instagram. Her child is kidnapped, and they're trying to figure out who took her, type thing. So that, like, aspect, is very similar to the podcast, a social media aspect in that. And then the whole what has happened to her and the clues, giving clues to like try to find her, and then where she actually is and what's actually happened to her and all this other stuff, is giving Gone Girl. And if you know anything about me, I'm not the biggest fan of that. Also, there's a whole aspect where there's a whole twist where like a bunch of stuff isn't actually happening in the book because side effect of her illness is that she can hallucinate, especially if she's not taking her meds properly. And because, you know, she's missing, you can assume she's not taking her meds properly, right? And so this whole entire aspect that's going on for like half the book isn't actually real, right? And it was giving unreliable narrator in that aspect like it did with Gone Girl. There's another aspect that starts with part 2 that gives Gone Girl. There's the whole giving clues that have to do with trying to find her that she left behind just for him, that make him look more guilty to the police. He becomes the #1 suspect because of it. There's the whole public outcry for trying to find this missing woman, right, aspect, as the paparazzi and the public think he had something to do with killing her or kidnapping her, all this stuff. It's giving Gone Girl. And I was not the biggest fan of that book for so many reasons. I think I gave that one like 3 stars as well. And so it's like, given that, but podcast, one thing I do appreciate, the reason why I assume a lot of people are going to really like it, and the reason I'm going to assume it's going to be in the Goodreads Choice Awards for Best Audiobook for this year, is the fact that when there's sections of the podcast in the book, there's also like a bonus section at the end, which is essentially a podcast episode, and whatnot, like a year later. So because of that, the production quality, they added an aspect where it actually sounds like a podcast, and it's well done in that way, right? Like, that was the most interesting part, and that was the part I liked the most, and that was just the people for the audiobook. Like, that wasn't like the actual book itself. Like, that wouldn't be an aspect in the ebook or the physical book. So, like, anyways, my biggest comp is to a book that I wasn't the biggest fan of. And so, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it in the end. But I can clearly see why a lot of people will like it. 3 stars. Okay, and I would like you to know that the next 4 are all books that I read, well, one of them with an asterisk, in the past 2 days. The first one is Dark Restraint by Katie Reber. I think this is book 7 in the Dark Olympus series. This one is Ariadne and the Minotaur. This has so much background lore that goes all the way to book 3. Thankfully, it does do a good job of explaining it, right? And whatnot, and all this stuff. Essentially, her father is trying to bring down the city, right? In the previous book, she switched sides and basically gave them all the information she had, for promise of safety, but they're definitely using her, right? They they're also trying to marry her off to Dionysus so that to like keep her around, keep her close, keep your enemies closer type thing, right? And all the stuff, but also for public purposes, and how people view them. But there's also this whole aspect where the book starts, literally the first scene is they're in a maze. Her and the Minotaur are in a maze. He has an actual name and I don't remember it, and I don't think I could pronounce it even if I could remember it. They're in a maze and they're bangling. And it's her first time. And she gets pregnant. And then she, because, and that's why she switches sides. Because she knows that her father would use the baby against her, and manipulate her if he doesn't, like, abuse her. There's heavy-handed child abuse and selling children sexually. That's like a whole heavy-handed thing in the background of this whole entire book, right? And so she knows that's going to be an aspect of this child. So and also the Minotaur was basically raised like her foster brother, kind of, and is her father's number one hitman. And they've always had this kind of bond, but not a great dynamic to bring a child into at this moment. So she switches sides in order to get an abortion. Her getting an abortion is a very big important part of this book. Anyways, she runs off, does tell him in a letter why, and that it was a thing, and she's already taken care of it, and all this stuff. Anyways, because of her switching sides, her father's like, kill that bitch. And his number one hitman is the baby daddy, is the Minotaur. So, he's all, like, trying to hide the fact that he is not going to actually kill her from her father, but also trying to help her father destroy the city, because, in that chaos is the best way to get her out of her father's hands. But also, and trying to make her understand that, yeah, he does bang-a-lang in her, but also he has been in love with her since the day they met, when he was on the streets at 13 years old, and she gave him her gloves. Anyways, 3.5 stars. I was not the biggest fan of a good chunk of it. A lot of the character stuff is not my favorite as of, like, book 3, I'm gonna be honest. Which is funny, because I'm on book 7. But, and hear me out, the ending, and there were some, like, the last, like, 75 pages, I was really enjoying, and it upped it to almost 4-star. Like, if it was past me a year ago, would have definitely just been like, oh my god, that's so good, 4 stars. But big brain me is like, actually, it's more of a 3.5, because it was definitely a 3-star for most of the book, and then that happened. Then the next one, this is the one that's the asterisk. Oh my god, I gotta reposition. Oh, my shoulders. The asterisk is because technically I did start The Hobbit in, like, February, I think. And I read, like, 12 or 13% of it. And then I did finally pick it back up this month. And I was reading it a little bit in bed. And then I remembered, I was on the time crunch. And it was, while I was reading Dark Restraint, I remembered I could just listen to the audiobook. And then I remembered, or to speed it up, that there is an Andy Serkis version of the audiobook. And so I checked on Hoopla. And, like, the month's about to turn over. And I have, like, 5 credits still. I might as well, if they have it. I assume they have an audiobook in general, but if they have the Andy Serkis one, and they did. So then I finished the rest of the book yesterday morning. That's all I did yesterday morning, is finishing that. And so, that is the asterisk, because technically I was 37% of the way through it before the last 2 days, but I did read it yesterday. 4 stars, it was good. Let me tell you, reading, 1, Andy Serkis did a great job. 2, the Gollum Smeagol scene, in the book, I know it's a children's book, but I was reading it in bed at night, and I was like, do I keep my light on all night? Because I have, like, a dimmed light over my bed overnight, for, like, late at night, while I'm, like, reading in bed or something, so I don't keep my sister awake, right? And I was like, do I keep that on? Because, like, it's fucking scary, my dude. There's multiple parts where, like, there's, like, that whole aspects where, like, they're being almost eaten or talking about eating them, and all this other stuff. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like, oh my god, don't read this to your children, especially the Smeagol part. That was very scary, actually. Like, actually 100% very scary. I did read that part before I picked up the audiobook, but I did go back to that chapter and listen to part of it, in the audiobook, because I want to see how Andy Serkis would do it, because, you know, he's famous for playing Smeagol. Yeah, no, that was fucking good. That was really fucking good. Anyways, I read that, and there was a lot of me laughing, remembering in comparison to the movies. Because those movies, whereas the first time, they came out when I was early teens. Like, I think the first one came out in 2012, so I would have been 13. Oh no, that hurt me. Anyways, what was I saying? I would have been like 13, and those are the movies that I like blatantly remember for the first time not liking the movie, and it's supposed to be enjoyable. Like, there's movies that I've watched that aren't good, but, like, they're not good on purpose, or they're funny bad and stuff like that, like The Room and stuff like that. No, this is one where, like, that extreme budget, like, they tried to make it so good, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my god, you could have used this money for anything else, right? And reading those sections in the book while thinking about what they did in the movies was so funny. Like, the most obvious one I can think of is the barrel scene. Like, why did that happen? Why did that happen? I don't know. Also laughing at how the part, like, where movie 1 ends, that section in the book, I guess they technically got the essence right. I was laughing so hard at sections, because how they did things. Very funny. Anyways, I don't know what else to say. Somehow they made Thorin more dislikable in the book. I'm gonna be honest. It wasn't gay enough. Where's my, Bilbo and Thorin, secretly love the whole journey aspect that was definitely in the movies, so thank you very much. They're really good at that. Anyways, oh, and then and also this whole process, I learned that they're remaking Lord of the Rings, and Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey, who I also know as the sheriff from like 3 episodes of Once Upon a Time, is playing Aragorn, and then I screamed into a pillow and I moved on with my life. And then I went, my sister's going away for a bit in less than a month, and I went, what if I watched the movies when she's gone? I may, the Lord of the Rings movies, not the Hobbit ones. I may just watch the Lord of the Rings movies when she's gone, because that seems like a great time. Anyways, I had an experience, 4 stars. I did like it. The Andy Serkis audiobook is really good. He must have drinking a lot of tea to do that. I'm gonna be honest. Alright, next up, I read Most Ardently, which is part of the Remix Classic series, which is, they take a bunch of classics and they remix them to be more diverse. The first one in the series, which I should read, is Black Little Woman, right? There's gay Great Gatsby for one of them. It's already gay. The one that I had read previously was Gay Romeo and Juliet. How dare there be a dog hair on my glasses? In which Romeo is in love with one of his friends there, and whatnot. This is queer Pride and Prejudice. I remember the day I learned this book was coming out because I had just read one of Gabe Cole Navoa. I think that's his name. His debut, which is A Wicked Bargain, and I really liked it, right? And then I learned part of this Remix Classic series, he was writing a queer Pride and Prejudice, and I went, oh my god, I'm gonna eat that the fuck up. And let me tell you, I ate it the fuck up. It was a bit slow for me in the beginning. just because, the way that it was done, the trans aspect, it was not what I would prefer in a book, but also, like, I recognize, yeah, it's not up to me. I'm not a trans man. Essentially, Elizabeth is a trans man, who goes by Oliver, right? And a lot of the book is him, essentially sneaking out, in men's clothes to, be himself, right? And and also, the reason why Darcy is like rude to women and doesn't dance with women is because he likes men. I will laugh. Okay, there was this one part that reminded me of the only other trans historical romance I've read, which is Aaliyah for Duke. It really reminded me, in essence, of that, and it made me laugh really hard. Which is the part when Elizabeth visits Charlotte. Well, Elizabeth slash Oliver, depending if it's in the original or this, is visiting Charlotte post being married to Mr. Collins, right? And then Darcy just shows up. It's like, marry me. They don't do the gazebo scene, which is very sad, but they do the whole like Darcy being very awkward and being like, marry me. And in this book, prior to that, as Oliver at a gay club, they did kiss. And then Darcy ran away. And then next time Oliver sees him, he is proposing to him as Elizabeth. And let me tell you, when Oliver explains this all to Darcy, which I do appreciate when and how he told him, like as soon as the opportunity came to tell him about this whole aspect, he explained it to him, and I was like, oh my god, I love how we're not actively hiding it from him. Like, it's not until post, like, before it was like, okay, they've met, like, twice as Elizabeth and then twice as Oliver, right? And, like, it's not that big of a deal, right? But then after the kiss and then the proposal, and the next time he sees him, it's like, you gotta tell him, right? And so explains it, and they have a good jolly laugh, because that's so fucking funny, the irony of that, hilarious. Anyways, a lot of this book is scenes, it's like a mishmash of the book itself, because in the Book of Pride and Prejudice, Bingley has two sisters, one of them is married, the two sisters are in this book, but one of them isn't married, as far as I can tell, right? So that's, like, a whole thing. It is a mix mash of the Joe Wright movie, the one I love, in which there's especially the part where, like, the mic drop scene of Elizabeth being all like, if only I was handsome enough to dance with, or something like that, to do with his line about not calling her handsome enough to dance with. There's a part where later on Oliver drops that bomb at him, and it's funny, right? And a few other things that are very reminiscent of the movie. But there's also a part where Oliver has a dream that is reminiscent of I haven't seen it, the miniseries, but I do plan to, because it's free on YouTube right now. So again, while Sister is gone, I'm going to do that. In which Colin Firth swims in a lake. I remember that. Or pond, or something like that, where there's like a whole, it's supposed to be like very down to detail, similar to the book, but they added Colin Firth swimming in a pond. Valid. Oh, valid. And it was added as a dream sequence in this book. Hilarious. The most different part is the whole Wickham, Mr. Collins, how they are villains. Mr. Collins isn't really a villain in the original, I guess, but he definitely is in this. And then how Wickham is a villain, and the extent of what he does is most different in this book. I loved the family dynamic. The father immediately, like, apparently has known this whole time that he's been sneaking out in women's clothes, and he's like, yeah, I'm so happy to have a son. I always wanted a son, and now I have a son. I may have teared up a little bit. Jane knows, his aunt and uncle know, and Charlotte knows, and then Charlotte's girlfriend, that's another thing. Charlotte is also gay and has a girlfriend, and both of them are married, which I find so funny. Anyways, there's this whole aspect, and the resolution to Mr. Collins and Mr. Wickham's villainy is so funny because cough cough, because it's not really a spoiler. Like, it's pretty obvious what's gonna happen. The and also maybe because I've read history books as of recently about trans people. Cough cough. They have a son, and Mr. Collins was only inheriting because there was no sons, and they have a son now. Iconic. Yeah, no, I love the family. Like, I love how a lot of the book is the mother, Mrs. Bennet, really being like trying to force Oliver to be femme and all this stuff, and then eventually near the end he finally tells her, and she's all like, that is my son, and if anybody hurts my son, I will kick their ass. And I love that for her. I love Mrs. Bennet. She was really getting on my nerves, and I really think she was really getting on Oliver's nerves too, and then Oliver finally just drops the bomb, and then she's like, that is my son. I will destroy everything to do with you, because that is my son. And I love that. The aspect was great. 4 stars. And then I read another historical romance. This is the one that I had to read anyways because it was due today at 1:30. What time is it? It's 11 o'clock. So I had to do it anyways. And it's also a historical romance. And that's Scott Under the Covers. I love the titles of these books. So essentially the setup for these books is there's these three McTaggart siblings, brothers. They also have a younger sister. They have lived in Scotland with their father this whole time. When they were fairly young, I want to say 3 weeks before the middle brother, who is the main character in this one, Aiden's I think 7th birthday, their mother leaves Scotland with the daughter and returns to London, and then they get a note randomly one day that the sister is engaged to this man. And they learn, as her father is like very sick, kind of on his deathbed, that actually there was this clause in the marriage that the part of the marriage is that she has all the money. She's the money, right? And so the money does not go to them, which is kind of important for like running their lands and whatnot, because they have a lot of lands and people who live on that land, so they can't take care of those people or take care of those lands if they don't have the money. The money does not go to them if they don't marry English ladies before their sister gets married. So now these books are essentially them trying to find English brides, right, as they're like being kind of xenophobia thing going on, right, in which it's a lot of English people being like, how dare you wear the Scottish clothing, how dare you, and also them being like how English ladies are very different than Scottish ladies and whatnot. Anyways, in this one, this is between Aiden and, I can't remember her name. I want to say Marisol, but that's not right. She is the sister of the guy who is about to marry their younger sister, right? Who they are very protective of and whatnot. The brothers are. And so she was away in the first book, and she's back in town, and she's back in town barely at all. Their first meeting with Aiden, the sister's trying to set them up because Aiden's like, I like a woman who is hard-headed and speaks her mind and is intelligent and won't take my shit, right? And so she's like, oh, bet I have this close friend who is also the sister of my fiance, and tries to introduce them, and she immediately is like, hey, I've heard stories, you really like gambling? I hate gamblers. She's got very valid reasons. And that same night, at the same party, she learns from her brother, well, actually, the guy blackmailing her brother, that he has a gambling addiction. It's been an issue in the past, right? But it's come and bit him in the butt, where Captain Vale, he owes him 50,000 pounds. I don't want to think about how much that is nowadays. Obviously, he does not have the money. He owed at one point like 1,000 or something like that previously, and he had to sell, like his parents made him sell a bunch of shit, of his own shit, to pay it back. There's no way you can pay $50,000. And Vale's like, I will, like, just erase the debts if I marry your sister. Essentially, yeah, no, he's essentially just, selling his sister to be married off. Um, yeah, I really hate this bitch. Anyways, so she is trying to figure out a way out of it. And so she goes to Aiden and she's like, hey, I know you're a gambler. Give me insights on this type of man. And eventually, so blah, 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 she explains pretty early on, what's happening. And his mindset is immediately like, one, like he immediately could use this information to break up the engagement between his sister and that guy, right? Jackass. I don't like him. And like that would make it so he doesn't have to immediately marry an English lady, right? I mean, do all this stuff, but he kind of likes her sharp tongue and wants to spend more time with her, but also he does not respect a man who would force a woman into marriage and all this stuff, and he wants to help her out because like he understands this is a scary situation. He would kill any man who did this to his sister. Like, thank you very much, right? And so he starts helping her out. They're in cahoots together, while she is also being courted by Vale, but she hates him, but she has to, like, make it look like that's what's happening, but also he's courting her, Aiden's courting her to piss off Vale, right? But also at the same time, he's also doing this whole thing where he wants to spend more time with her, and he's teaching her about desire and all this stuff, but there's also this whole aspect where she is essentially being sold to a man for 50,000 pounds of debt. Her whole life is being controlled by these other men, and so there's this whole aspect that's made very clear right between them. He makes it very clear to her multiple times that yes, he likes bang-a-lang in her, and he likes spending time with her, but like there's a whole aspect where he's being forced to marry an English lady, and she's going through this whole dilemma, and he's also the only person helping her out. And so like this whole dynamic is a little weird. It's not set up to be like a good start to a relationship, right? Like you can go off and live your own life. We don't have to be together, despite the fact that they're saying I love you. He's all like, we don't have to be together after this. I know you need my help right now. Blah blah blah. Anyways, they defeat Vale, and she proposes to him. Iconic. I loved it. Great book. I do I do love many points of this, and whatnot. They were very flirty, and I loved it. Good times. It got to the point where, when I was reading this, I was like, I really like the writings of this book. Did I mention I rated this one 4.5 stars? Mostly because I had just read another historical romance, most startedly, and I was like, I like this one a little bit more. So 4.5. But not quite 5 stars, okay? But I was like, I really like her writing. So like I got through this whole process. There's only one more book in the series. I gotta find something else by her to read. Because I'm really liking these books and I like her writing, and I'm hoping it's going to be something where like I like Tessa Dare's writing, but there's still like a good few books, like the Castles Ever After series I was not the biggest fan of. After book 2 of the main series, the Spindle Cove series, after the first 2, I wasn't a big fan of most of those. I do love the Duke series, let's be honest. That series, spectacular. Greatest romances, straight romances I've read. But this is pretty close to those, right? I'm really liking these, so I was like trying to look up other books she's read. And apparently she's written. She's written a lot. And apparently another one by her is already on my TBR. I just didn't know about it. That's so funny. Anyways, I had a great fucking time with it. Their banter was funny. He was very hot. He was like in the mindset to say all these like flirty hot things to her, but like he didn't want to make it obvious that he was into her, because he wanted to give her space to think about it, because she's going through this whole dilemma and whatnot with another man, and he didn't want her to feel like she's being forced to in a relationship with another man that she needs the help of to get out of this other dilemma, right? So he's not doing all that stuff or saying all that stuff, and then he starts saying and doing all those things, and she's just like, and I'm like, girl, me too. Anyways, good times, that's it. Finally, we're done. I'm gonna go disappear into the void. I'm gonna finish my tea, actually. That's very cold. saved and edit this. Any video stuff, links below, all the things. I stream pretty regularly. Wednesdays are slightly edited down versions of gaming streams that I do. So I do gaming, but I also do reading and co-working and stuff like that. So that's what Wednesdays are. Unless if the way that the end of the month works out where the wrap up has to be on a Wednesday, but that rarely happens. Saturdays are booktube videos like this one. Next week I'm gonna tell you now. I know what it is. It's Unhinged Smut. The accuracy of that statement. This is a semi-regular thing for me. I gotta speed it up on those because people keep on sending me more and more recs. I love these people, but oh my god, why? So stay tuned for that. That's everything. I'm gonna go into the next video.